Hi everyone. I missed the first part of the morning, so if it hasn't already been done, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. I think we're meeting on Gadigal country and want to acknowledge our elders past, present and emerging. So, but Kieran, thank you for making the time.
No worries, thanks for having me. Jesus.
We've got to go off stage already.
Want to have that impact, but okay.
Yeah. The world wants to know a lot about the Warwick brothers, but we've got one here today. And one of my favourite things that I've seen you post publicly is that, you know, in your whole life, and with all of the ventures you've started, it's only ILV and Alluvium that your mum has supported. So, you know, before we get into this fireside chat, you know, what role has your mum played, and is she responsible for these 4 successful Warwick brothers?
She's probably responsible for keeping us alive. I think my dad's probably responsible for the ridiculously competitive nature that we all seem to possess. But yeah, I had multiple startups prior to Illuvium, and my biggest takeaway from that is fail fast, like fail almost immediately if you can. That's a joke, but yeah. So
you'll have a doubt.
So yeah, finally, my mum said, "Well, you know, you actually made a decent project, so of course I'm going to invest." So that was my mum's input.
Yeah. Well, and so tell us the story of you know, what is Alluvium? Break it down for us, and what made you want to build something like this with a team?
Sure.
And DAO first.
Yeah. So it's an open world RPG, and what we're trying to do that is a little bit different to the other games that you would have seen that are like live in the space now. You've got Axie, some people have touched on that, Pegasus, and quite a few other ones, Fancy Birds. But no, there's no AAA game, and so there's no game that, you know, you would want to play or your kids would want to play that is what we call in the industry AAA, and that's a game that has a huge amount of funding. It has a huge amount of personnel that are building. Our team's already up to nearly 200, and you need all of these elements. You need a tremendous amount of storyline. You need a great designer to be able to build all of this. It takes a long time. And so that's what we're trying to do differently. I'm a little bit impatient and naive sometimes, and so I thought, hey, let's just do it in 12 months. It's taken a little bit longer than that, but we're pretty close. We've got the private beta launching very, very soon. And which I'm not in yet. We can talk about that offline. But how it started, to answer that question, was Kane, as you know, he runs Synthetics, or used to. I can't keep up with him at the moment, what he's actually doing with that. But he was in crypto. I was actually in crypto back in 2016, and so I had a little bit to do with it. And he just kept on pestering me, and you know, saying, "What are you doing? You know, stop, get out of the mainstream, go into the Web3 world." And eventually I did. I started trading. I was definitely a degen, and I saw these games and I thought, what would happen if we built something that was, you know, a AAA game?
And I did hear a little birdie tell me that you had only most of Christmas Day off in 2020. But, you know, in the initial stages, you're working around the clock to bed down the concept. Yeah,
so the problem with Kane is he's very, very helpful in some respects, and he's very unhelpful in other respects. When you're going to him and you're pitching, and you've spent 2-3 weeks building this token model that you think is genius, and you go to him and within 5 seconds he's basically like, "Get out of my house and come back when you have something good." You know, that process was grueling to learn, you know, where's crypto up to now, what exactly is DeFi, and how can, one thing that and I'm so glad we did I went through that 6-month period, because it really allowed us to integrate DeFi elements from the very, very beginning, which I think is missing in a lot of the games that are being built today.
Well, yeah, and is growing. I mean, we're learning a lot from the likes of Axie and gaming guilds. I mean, is there anything that you wish you knew 18 months ago that you know now? Would you change any of the initial approach?
Yeah, I mean, probably that I was just so naive thinking that this space would have a bunch of AAA games in the next 2-3 years, so we need to be super, super fast. I probably would have taken a step back and said, okay, let's do this in a somewhat reasonable time so my team can actually like survive it. But yeah, it was just, I guess, being just, we're so early. I even think that now, and we've been building for 18 months. And hearing some of the DeFi guys around here say that they still feel like they're early is making me feel even more early. So yeah.
Well, I think there's some sort of market validation when the Web 2 companies are trying to copy you or are staffing and resourcing their teams to come up with a Web 3 strategy, as we've heard throughout yesterday and today. But, what is it about play to earn that's going to connect with the mainstream? Like, and what are alluvials? How can I get them?
Well, I think it's been brought up a bunch of times. It's the dream, right? Everyone wanted to, if you could play games for a living, that's the dream. And this is no longer a dream. This is literally happening, particularly with Axie and in Philippines. You literally have storefronts now that are accepting their native currency. It's phenomenal. It's an insane thing to watch. In terms of our alluvials, how do you capture them? So it's an open world. The difference, I guess, but let's use Pokemon as an example. I loved Pokemon growing up. It was my favorite game to play and collect things from. But
I think there's a Pikachu in the hallway.
Yeah, I might steal it. But no, so you didn't. The thing about Pokemon was when you played the games, you didn't own the characters.
Yeah.
And that was the issue, right? When you had the collectibles, as in the cards, you felt something tangible, it was in your hands, and it was real. Now, people can say that they're JPEGs and whatever, but, these are on a ledger. They're literally on a blockchain. These are NFTs, and, it makes it real. And it gives people the option with these decentralized marketplaces and even to a certain extent centralized marketplaces now, they're giving people options to go and say, hey, sell your Axie, recuperate some of the money that you've spent on playing this game. Ideally, you've had a fun time playing the game and you walk away and that experience is much better than, say, your kids who have gotten $1,000 worth of Fortnite skins, and then one day they wake up and they go, I don't want to play Fortnite anymore. I actually want to play World of Warcraft. And you're like, but what about my $1,000 that's just sitting in that game? If that was a Web3 game, you could take those assets and you could sell them. And whether or not that's for a profit or not, it's giving the player a choice, which is the difference.
Well, and gaming guilds seem to be crucial with not just mainstream adoption, but educating the gaming community about how to make that shift themselves. What are you doing with some of the gaming guilds in, building those grassroots communities, not just in the Philippines and with sort of the Axie focus, but anywhere else?
We're trying to support them wherever we can. It's that, the whole GameFi movement has been crazy, but watching guilds pop up with billion-dollar valuations overnight was quite ludicrous in my mind. They've always played a part in gaming. The worry that I have with guilds is how they're being positioned right now. I think they need to be more so platforms that have communities behind them, because there's a lot of these guilds need to buy in big in terms of the assets. And there's a lot of risk with holding a lot of assets, and I don't necessarily think that a guild is the right sort of structure to be doing that sort of stuff. But it's a very fluent situation. Tomorrow, a lot of them are saying we're no longer a guild, we're a platform, and we're going to lend out NFT assets and stuff like that. So I'm just observing it and watching it closely, but we're supporting them.
Yeah, well, it seems like the secret sauce that DeFi doesn't have, because they're relying on, I think in the panel before we heard about Block Earner, which is a type of CeFi DeFi bridge. It's trying to help the mainstream access DeFi, which still feels a bit hard. I don't quite get it. Will I actually lose all my money from this staking scheme or something? And all of that, it still seems quite individual and profit oriented, because to return on the investment in the compliance to get people through safely, CeFi to DeFi, it takes a lot of effort. But it seems like gaming guilds are going in, they're actually hiring spaces, getting people in a room together, teaching them digital skills, and it's fun. It's about games.
Yeah, 100%.
But then that go on to the DeFi elements as well.
And how can they, their job, their role is to supplement the game, right? It always has been. And, can they help with the KYC process? Is there some things like that they can implement that can help games like us or even platforms and whatever? Maybe they can have partnerships with L2s like Immutable that we're building on and whatever. And so, yeah, it's very fluid. Trust me.
I know, we're all learning on the go. Well, and speaking of learning, I think everybody in this room and a lot of people watching in want to know, what is it like running a DAO first thing? What is the on-the-ground experience of being DAO first and responding to your community and a growing community?
It's pretty crazy, to be quite honest. I would even say it was very scary. As someone who has built businesses pretty much my entire adult life, you don't go and give away your entire business. Like that essentially that's what you're doing, right? You take a tiny percentage and you're hoping that the network effects of saying, hey, we're going to give all of you ownership of, in our case, this game. Does that make people, instead of spending $10, do they spend $1,000 because they feel like they have ownership of it and there's not this, ugly centralized entity that's taking all the profits and no one quite likes it? It's almost like we're all building this together and we all want to make it work. And yeah.
Well, and so is it true that there's an alluvial that's inspired by you? And
there's 3 actually.
Which
there's not. Sorry, that sounds so bad. There's 3 alluvials that are inspired by the 3 brothers that are creating the core contributors, and they're the 3 monkey characters, and it's based on us all being apes, basically. Yeah, so kind of fitting.
Yeah.
In my case, definitely.
Well, and I mean, it sounds like you've got infrastructure coming too. There's an Illuvium office on the way.
Yep.
How is that going to work? I mean, you've got a global basis of core contributors. Are you going to bring them all in? How are you going to connect other than virtually?
I'm watching Danny just run duck.
We're all asking that question. Like, moving to the future of work.
So it's okay. So firstly, it's what's happened with us. I forget the protocol that was talking earlier today that mentioned that they have 140 people over a 4-year period. We have 200 people over a 12-month period that we've grown to. And the reason is we need more, like, to build these AAA games, you need resources. It has been the most insane experience of my life. Like, out of those 200 people, I've met physically 10 to 15. So, working in that sort of environment is pretty crazy. Getting the headquarters established and having the ability to bring people in from overseas is obviously something that we do want to do. But very much in our ethos, early on, I made sure that when we were bringing someone on, it was what decentralization is. It's work from wherever you want, whatever hours you want, however you want. It doesn't worry me unless you aren't doing your job, right? And that's what being a core contributor is. There's a reason why they're not employees, because if they don't want to go to work today and contribute, they don't have to, but there's a system in place, there's a governance which very quickly we can, say, look, you're not contributing, move on to the next thing. Again, it's very, very efficient way of working.
And what, I suppose, worries you the most? You're dealing with a lot of unknowns, it's all emerging. What keeps you awake at night? if it's not just getting through the work. So many
things, but I guess, it's pretty public knowledge that we just had our staking contracts compromised. We're just about to put them back online in the next sort of 24 hours. Stuff like that. The security of our users is obviously the utmost importance for me. But also building a fun game. I don't, being the person that's, out there and talking to people and had the vision and whatever, I'm not necessarily in the trenches and seeing it day to day like some of the other guys in the DAO. And so for me, it's when I see updates from the team and it's good, it puts me at ease, because building a AAA game in the space of time that we have has never been done. So it kind of scares me. Yeah.
Well, and it's exciting too.
And it's exciting, yeah.
Well, and what's the thing that you wish more people knew before they made the decision to, launch something DAO first, or if they want to decide to be, on the safer side, get some product market fit with a centralized entity and transition to a decentralized model of governance? What would you tell them?
It's tricky, right? Because I had a very biased situation when we were able to go DAO first. Firstly, you need to be able to, and again, cover your ears, you need to be able to accept capital without any agreements or SAFs or literally anything. You just email them and say, hey, can I have my $1 million and I'll give you your tokens. And so that is, if you're able to get your product into that position, and obviously we had the backing of Kane, and so everyone thought, well, he's not going to rug us, because if he does, then everyone's going to leave synthetics. And so we were kind of safe there. But we also had a good product as well by that stage. We'd worked really, really hard on the tokenomics and whatever. And so if you can get your product into a position where you can go DAO first, it has so many more advantages that it's far, far superior for capital. And a number of other things like governance and whatever. But if you can't, then you might have to go the traditional route and go centralized and have all those things in place.
Well, and what do you wish more people knew about you? You're always facing the community.
Yeah.
You always respond. You're available what seems like 24/7. What do you wish people just knew when they're communicating with you and contributing to Illuvium?
That there's a method to the madness. I think a lot of the time it's pretty stressful doing what we do as protocol founders, and I regularly talk to my brothers about this, and it's super, super stressful, and it might seem like our competitive nature comes off as some people like it, some people don't. It's very polarizing, but there's always a method to what I'm doing and the DAO's doing.
So what's the success story? Like, when is it done? Is it when you and your brothers can just sit on the couch and enjoy playing the Alluvium game and
I honestly don't ever
is it the
see us doing that, but we just kind of don't stop. You know, like it's another game. We're building a studio, and so that's, I guess, something that gets missed a little bit. What are you going to do? You know, people say, what are you going to do after you launch Illuvium? And it's like, what am I going to do? What are the 1,000 people going to do that are sitting in a studio? Make another game. You know, like that's the obvious choice. And so, yeah, we're here for, we see this as like a 5, 10, 15, 20-year journey. Like, it's going to take a long, long time for traditional gaming companies to come across. We're even seeing resistance with traditional gamers. And so, you know, like DeFi, we've got to push through the boundaries, and you know, I think we'll get there in the end, but we're still a long way off.
All right, well, let me into the private beta and we'll see.
Okay, sweet. Deal.
Well, I think we're at time, and thank you so much
for
taking the time to talk to us today, and good luck with everything.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.